Thank you, Ann. Thank you, all of you from Pittsford, for holding this Memorial Day parade. Many communities don't do this anymore. I think it's great that Pittsford has continued this important, worthy tradition. A special thanks to Rod Drown and Bob Welch for presenting me with an opportunity to speak here today. I'm truly humbled by that offer. Today I offer you a few thoughts regarding Memorial Day, and I hope that they may strike similar feelings that you may have about this day and reinforce its importance. We cannot forget those who have gone before us and given up their lives on behalf of our country. Jared Hayes was a good lead-in for me. He told you about General John Logan, who helped create Memorial Day back in 1868. In his proclamation, General Logan stated, "Gather around their sacred greens and garland the passionless mountains above them with choicest flowers of springtime. Let us in this solemn presence renew our pledges to aid and assist those whom they have left among us as sacred charges upon the nation's gratitude, the soldiers and sailors, widows and orphans." The meaning of Memorial Day has evolved over the years. I remember as a young lad growing up in Rutland, it was an annual event for me to go with my grandmother and aunt to put flowers on our relatives' graves. I know that many of you carry out that tradition today. I hope that you continue it. While stationed in Europe for 5 years, I traveled around to many different countries. One cold, drizzly, overcast November weekend, just like a Vermont November, I traveled to France and found myself standing on a hillside looking down over a sea of gravestones in a World War I cemetery. I was at Verdun. Verdun was the site of World War I fighting. Over 14,000 war dead are interned within the cemetery. Each of the dead has its own headstone of white marble, a Star of David for those of the Jewish faith, and a Latin cross for all others. The immense array of headstones is arranged in long parallel rows and extends row on row to the chapel crowning the ridge overlooking the graves area. This was just the American cemetery. As I stood there on that cold, overcast November day, I remembered thinking, what a waste. Imagine this feeling I had of the Verdun graves by standing next to Pittsford's first memorial, the monument to 19-year-old Caleb Houghton, killed here in Pittsford in 1780 during the Revolutionary War. That monument stands today on the west side of Route 7, just north of town. Go and stand there and look west toward Otter Creek. Imagine row upon row of grave markers extending down the hill and filling the field below to the creek. That will give you the feeling that I had at Verdun. A year or so later, I found myself in another war-related cemetery in Holland. Once again, I saw row upon rows of crosses of those killed in World War II. One cross stood out from all those hundreds. It's left a lasting impression on me. On that singular cross was written the solitary word, why? Why indeed? Think about it. Human nature has a dark side. Since Cain killed Abel, humans have found conflict with one another. Whether it's one person killing another, or religious or fanatical groups, nations or continents killing one another, our world history is rife with man's inhumanity to man. But it is not really inhumanity, is it? It's a part of human nature we must acknowledge and struggle with. Again, I ask why? Why can't we just get along? There's no easy answer. Our founding fathers recognized the injustice side of human nature when they wrote the Declaration of Independence. They also recognized the brighter side of human nature when they wrote in that July 4, 1776 Declaration, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Such is the groundwork for our country's founding and the basis for answering the question why. The why we in this country struggle to maintain the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness that are deemed self-evident truths. Freedom to pursue and maintain these ideals is a continual challenge. We recognize that. From the Revolutionary War to the War of 1812 to the Civil War to the World Wars of the 20th century and on and on and on, we address the why. and the conflicts continue today. Today we personalize the why with commemorations such as this Memorial Day. Those veterans here on my right are excellent representation of the personalization of the why. They have been there, too close to the why. Thank God they have returned and are with us today. They, like many of you here, have departed relatives or friends who deserve special remembrance on this Memorial Day. That's why we are here. When you leave here today, ask yourselves why, and keep asking it. Start with yourselves and begin a personal grassroots effort to reduce the conflicts in your lives and settle them peacefully. Pray that your efforts will be contagious and someday infect the world with an epidemic of peace. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? I would like to close with excerpts from 2 letters that were first shown to me in January of this year by Marcus Blair of Rochester, Vermont. They address the why on a Civil War battlefield, a war that claimed the lives of over 640,000 Americans. That's more than the entire population of Vermont today. The letters address why we celebrate this Memorial Day. It is April 1862. 24-year-old Corporal Jeremiah Emery Wilson of the village of Gaysville in Stockbridge, Vermont, of Company C, 6th Regiment of Vermont Volunteers, has just been killed in action. His friend, Lieutenant Hiram Kimball from Stockbridge, is writing home to Emery's father in Stockbridge, telling him about his son's death. Mr. Wilson, dear sir, after having attended to the sad duty, to the best of my ability, of burying the remains of your son, I write what I know of the particulars of the cause of death of one of my oldest, best friends and associates. He died about 3 o'clock this morning with a contented smile on his features, yet with a slight twinge of eyes, as though not entirely free from pain. The Gaysville boys carried him to his now beautiful resting place. Yes, in the very ground where are buried those who fought, bled, and died 73 years ago for our liberty and our glorious Union, we buried him under a beautiful apple tree in full bloom. And as we, his schoolmates and associates, dropped a silent tear and turned away, we thought we were ready to fight on, and should it be our turn to lay by his side. Emery was as fearless as he was true in every noble thing. Lieutenant Kimball addressed very solemnly the question why. 2 months later, in June 1862, Corporal Wilson's 23-year-old friend, Private Norman Blanchard, wrote to Emery's father, telling him again about his son's death. Mr. Wilson, Emery's virtues was not excelled by any one of his company as a man. He was a good one, a true patriot and brave soldier, never flinching from duty no matter of what kind it was. He never complained of his pains nor his lot. When we dug his grave, there was not a dry eye in the little squad of us that remained. I myself done the best to check the tears, but of no use. And when we come to heap the cold earth upon the then cold body of him that he knew no pain, it was hard to think he was gone. But so here and no more. How good it would seem to have a memento of the place where he rests. We have procured the photograph of the place where the maple slab points out his resting place. A maple slab points out his resting place. Even then, it was important to memorialize the graves of their comrades. Norman Blanchard died on the battlefield a year later. Thank you, Pittsford, for commemorating Memorial Day in this traditional way. God bless you all.